Hello, my name is Aaron Zhao, and this is my Link Leadership application. For this video, which will actually be a podcast, I will be answering the numerous questions that are on the application for the Link Leadership team. So, here we go. I have the questions laid out on my computer here, just to make sure that I'm not missing any. So the first question is, what is a challenge that you faced in high school, and what did you learn from it? So for me, the challenge was loneliness. Surprisingly, in grade 8, that was not the problem at all. I came into grade 8 extremely extroverted. Well, simply because I was excited. I have been waiting for this high school experience since I was in grade 6. Because I remember, grade 6 was when my interest in high school began to climb, because that's when I was exposed to Netflix. And that's also when I found all of these seasons after seasons of TV shows that romanticize high school. And of course, being the naive self that I was back then, I bought it. And like most kids back then. So, grade 8, I step through the doors. And instantly I make around a dozen friends. Because when you're extroverted, you have that confidence to talk to people, talk to strangers who you've never seen before. Strangers who are, perhaps 2 feet taller than you. At least that was my sense of extroversion. I remember taking the Myers-Briggs test in grade 8, or it might have been the end of grade 9. But regardless, it was around the time that I entered high school, and my extroversion levels were at around 80%, which is the highest it has ever been. And so naturally, talking to people was not a problem. And so, with that mindset, that really defined my personality back then. Grade 8, grade 9 were all very, very successful years in terms of socialization. And socialization brings humans happiness. I mean, there's plenty of psychological literature on that. And not just psychology literature, but science. It's like humans are, you've probably heard of this, humans are social animals. Our culture, and when I say our culture, I mean the North American culture, sort of emphasizes this culture of individualism. And it's like the lone maverick can only go so far until they need someone else. It's like the reality is that, yeah, individualism is impressive. I mean, for sure, it's truly not a talent. It's truly a skill that takes years, if not decades, to mastery. The skill called independence. And now the reality is that, yeah, it sure is a value that everyone should adopt into their lives at some point. But at the same time, people cannot overlook the idea of collectivism. The idea that you need people to depend on. Because that's the human life. Humans survive because we form into cliques. It's like, why are there friend groups at school? Why are there that one set of people who everyone sort of knows instantly when you name one of the people in that group? It's like, yeah, you might not like the people in that specific clique of people, but I mean, that is impressive to form such a strong bond between, 12, 14 people all gather around that one cafeteria table. That is human socialization. And that was me in grade 8 and grade 9. And then the pandemic came. That ruined me. It's like every single class that I had, I didn't have much friends in. I mean, at most I had 1 or 2. That was tough. Yeah. And then there was some intra-communal conflict that happened in my friend group at that time. And it was a friend group of around 6 people. Because one of them left at the end of grade 9. And now I want to have these people remain anonymous, so I won't use their real names, nor will I name what the conflict was, because, well, that's their business. But basically, the conclusion was that the friend group broke into two halves. I was on one half. And at that point, it was around, I think, 4 people when the group broke. And so, boom. 2 on one side, 2 on the other side. And 2 of them really, really despised each other in those weeks of quarter 3. Or rather, quarter 2, quarter 3. So it's like, I mean, what do you do in that situation? It's like you still want to be friends with the other group, but at the same time, you still want to help the person on your side. I mean, it truly was a battle of diplomacy and a battle of camaraderie, and making sure that you're not losing anyone in the end. And it's tough getting through those situations. And so what ended up happening was, well, that took me away from all my friends. Because eventually what happened was that I ended up being alone in the library during lunches, just sitting there, contemplating my life, or reading a book. But in reality, I was not reading at all. I was thinking about how to get myself out of that situation. Because like I said, humans are very, very dependent on socialization. And so, how did I overcome this feeling of loneliness? Because it was very, very powerful. I remember almost crying many, many times in the library. And I'm not the type of person to cry. So when I do, the problem is generally either really, really inflated by my mind, or it actually is seriously serious, which was the case. Because, well, I would say I'm a relatively social person. So now back to the question. How did I solve this? Frankly speaking, I didn't. I let time heal it. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm sure you've heard of the saying, time heals. And truly it does. It's like, how do you let a wound heal? Well, you don't splash magical potion on it and then hope that the skin, repairs itself the next day. No, you put cream on it, maybe you throw on a Band-Aid, and then you wait, a week, 2 weeks for the skin to reheal. It takes time. And the true uncomfort that comes with loneliness is actually the lack of motivation. It's because, now, let's talk about the science of loneliness. When you're lonely, you feel defeated. And when you feel defeated, your serotonin levels and your dopamine levels, which are all crucial hormones that either create or give you a motivation, an incentive to seek reward, to seek pleasure, actually lowers significantly. And dopamine, the hormone that most people think causes pleasure, when in reality, dopamine does not cause pleasure. It creates drive to seek something that brings you pleasure. When you have low dopamine levels, you have low incentive, you have low drive. And adrenaline, which is the hormone that brings human energy, that brings human that sense of eagerness, decreases as well, because dopamine serves as a precursor that your body uses to build adrenaline. And as you may already know, adrenaline is what gives your body fuel. It's what gives your body that sense of, I want power, I want success, I feel motivated, I feel like I'm on top of the world. That's the power of adrenaline. And when you're low on adrenaline, serotonin, and dopamine, you feel like the whole world is against you. You feel like every single day that you spend at school is another loss for you. And that was how I felt. But I knew that this situation couldn't be healed in a day or two. I knew it because loneliness is not something that you can snap your fingers and the next day you'll have 30, 40 friends crowding all over you. That's not the case. And so I waited it out. I waited around, a month and a half, maybe nearly 2 months, until the next quarter came. And that was when I had drama and I had PE together. And so that was an excellent end to my year, just so you know. I had at least 30, 40 friends. Actually, yeah, 30, 40 friends with me every single day, all together. Because in PE, PE is really, PE and drama are probably two of the most enjoyable classes in terms of like energy levels. It's like, yeah, science and math does actually increase my energy level because I'm very much a STEM person. I love science, I love mathematics. But it's just not the same energy as what drama brings you, as what PE brings you. Because in those classes, you're using your body. And when you use your body, you're essentially exercising. And when you exercise, you increase your dopamine levels. And so what ended up happening, I was reunited with these friends who I hadn't talked to in months. And I felt, all of that suppressed, bad energy that had been wielded inside of me for the last few months all dissipate. And, that was an amazing, amazing unloading of stress, of negativity. So the key takeaway here was, let time heal. It's like the human population, the human species is a very, very impatient species, at least in the 21st century. In fact, our attention span has been dropping steadily every decade that passes. Believe it or not, you can search it up on Google. So with that thought in mind, I'd like to end this question with, certain problems can stick around, but them sticking around for just a little longer doesn't actually hurt you in the end. It really doesn't. Because ultimately, time heals, like in my situation. It's just, you gotta wait a little bit of time until that next phase of your life kicks in. And, everything turns around. So yeah, that's how I would answer the first question. The second question. Why would I like to be a Link Crew leader? Now, this one, I actually have thought about it while I was in the car today. So, I want to be part of the Link leadership team because I want to be an inspiration for the grade 8s. Not in the sense that I want to lift my ego, no. Because I want to make sure that these grade 8s are tackling high school with the right mindset. Because mindset is everything in the high school life. It is absolutely everything. Your mindset ultimately determines your success. And not just in school, in your early childhood, perhaps in your elementary school years, and then later on after you graduate high school and you go into university. Because mindset defines your habits, and your life is really just habits after habits. Everything you do from the moment you wake up, or even before you wake up, are habits. It's like, well, when do you wake up? Let's say 8 p.m. Or p.m. 8 a.m. So 8 a.m. Well, that's a habit of yours. Some people wake up at 6:30. Some people wake up at 11. Those are habits. And then what's the first thing you do after you wake up? Again, that's habit. So my point is, if you start the school year with the right habits, or with the thought of establishing the right habits, high school becomes so much easier for you. And so an example that I would tell students is, you don't aim to be the best. So at first that sounds very countercultural, and it's a shock to many people that you shouldn't work your best, because we're fostered in this environment where trying your best always means that you're going to end up with some result that you'll find absolutely beneficial for your own life. And that may be the case. I'm not denying the validity in saying that. But what I'm saying is, when you try your best in something, say you give all your energy into pre-calculus 11, let's say, what happens is that the opportunity cost becomes higher. When you spend all of your time in one course, you can't spend as much time in another course. And so what happens, you get a high grade in this class and you get a lower grade in the other class. Trying your best means that you're investing more time, but there's a cost in investing time, right? It's like this much time invested in one course means that you're losing out on time that you could potentially be using to study for the next test for a different course. And so ultimately, it's a matter of balancing your classes, not necessarily trying your best. Because, everyone immediately forms this link between trying your best and spending a lot of time on something else. And while perhaps doing both of those things may be very, very productive and helpful for you trying to aim towards your goals, that also means that you're forming trade-offs here. Because, again, you want to make sure that you're spending adequate amount of time in every single one of your classes and not valuing one over the other. Because balance is key. And that's the point that I want to make here. And so why did I tell you about all this? It's because this is the type of mindset that I really, really want grade 8s to sort of adopt into their own lifestyle, is because, again, I will emphasize it one more time, is that going into high school with the right habits really sets you up for not only an enjoyable experience in high school, but a successful one. And on the top of my head, I can think of a few other examples that I would perhaps either share with the grade 8s, or if they happen to ask me, I'll tell them a few entertaining stories. So, excuse me. Another example would be to turn your resentment into motivation. It's like if you get a bad grade on a test, right? Obviously you're not happy with it. I sure am not. But how do you turn that unhappiness into something more productive, into something that'll actually benefit your life? Because resentment, while it is a key human motivator, it is the combination of pretty much every single bad emotion, bad human sentiment that you can think of. Hate, jealousy, depression, right? Anxiety, fear. That's what resentment is. And so if you can turn that into something more beneficial for you, something more constructive, then think of where you can go with that, right? It's like if you really hate something, if you really aren't pleased with your status quo, well, how do you release it? Some people go to the gym, right? Some people go on runs. Some people stress their bodies productively. And when I say stress their bodies, I mean pushing their bodies just to release some of that resentment. And that's yet another very, very powerful human, not human trait per se, but a tenet of life that perhaps you can adopt into your own life. And again, I want to make sure that I'm staying on task here. These things are the tenets per se that I would share with these grade 8s. Of course, if they're willing to listen, that is. Because ultimately, I want to help them set up their lives. If they want, that is. I would never force these rules upon them because they are not for everyone. Okay. So, third question. Where do you normally eat lunch? Well, for this year, I ate lunch in front of my locker 2268. Next year, it'll probably be different. So, honestly, if you want to find me, just go to the grade 12 hallway and you will probably see me. Okay. Next question. What activities are you involved in both inside and outside of school? So, inside of school, I am the stage manager of this year's musical, Little Shop of Horrors. Stage managing is really a position of leadership. It's a position of communication, because probably the single job of a stage manager is to link together the various different branches the various different branches of a musical that ultimately produce one production. And so that means coordinating or sending messages between the choreographer, the director, and perhaps makeup, costuming. You want to make sure that there's no confusion and that everything runs smoothly. So, being the stage manager is very, very rewarding because it helps you set up this very conscientious sort of mindset where you want to make sure that everything is timely, everything is orderly, and you're minimizing error. Because that's really the role of a stage manager. So the next activity that I do is tennis. So this is something outside of school, extracurricular. I am in a U13 plus competitive tennis program. And I've been playing tennis for the last 4 years, since the beginning of high school, because I played baseball for around 6 years prior to going into high school. I figured, I try out a new sport. I tried out tennis, and it happened to be the perfect sport for me. So I adopted it into my daily schedule, my weekly schedule actually, because I don't practice every single day. And I truly, truly connected with this sport. Because tennis, again, is all about coordination, but instead of sort of the stage managing coordination, it's more of coordination with their body, right? It's like a tennis player needs to coordinate every single part of their body. And so their shoulders, their arms, their forearms, their wrist, their hands, this all has to do with the racket. And then you have to think about your foot positioning. Then in that case, it would be your foot placement, your ankle movement, your whole leg and your waist. And then you have to create that rotational drive in order to actually, give yourself more power to send the tennis ball across the tennis court. And so then you're training your core and your chest. And finally, tennis is a game that not only requires physical, brute force, but it also requires cognition, because where you place the ball and what shot you select before that ball crosses the net all has to happen in the split milliseconds. And you want to make sure that you're making the wise choice of placing it in the exact same spot, because, you want to set yourself up for the next ball that comes flying back at you at, perhaps 90 miles per hour. So it's almost like playing chess. It's like after you hit the ball back, where are you going to be, right? Am I going to be on the right side of the court, the left side of the court? You have to predict your opponent's next move. And again, coordination, right? You're putting this mental process and your physical process all together into one successful endeavor to win a game. And that's key. That's key to not only the tennis game, but also your life game. Well, my life game at least. But I think everyone can take something out of, the coordination of the human body and the human mind for tennis. And finally, the last one is I have attended the Greater Vancouver Regional Science Fair for the past 2 years. This year, I wrote my project and I designed a novel irrigation system that seeks to exploit a plant's natural ability to grow lateral roots. That sounds like a lot. If you want more information, you can ask me, because this video is getting a little too long. Who is your best friend at school? Ted Jang and Danica Lorenz. And my sponsor teachers are Mrs. Reese, Mr. Aruda, and Miss Wong. So that's all that I have to say for this podcast episode. I must say that this was a very, very enjoyable process. I love storytelling. I love telling people about my life. I love sharing motivational words, constructive words to really anyone who asks me, anyone who wants to listen. And so I guess I will end it on that note. I really hope that I am able to join this Link Leadership Program because, it's an opportunity for leadership. And with everything that I've told you, I really do think that not only is my mindset fit for the Link Leadership team, but also, I have a passion for sharing and practicing these cognitive abilities. And of course, again, going back to coordination, because leadership is, a lot of it is coordination, right? So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.